Okay, so I have a bit of a rant today. I keep seeing a recurring thing, which is people asking me, hey, could you help me with my speaking English? Hey, I'm a student in English major, but my spoken English is not as good, or they'll straight up tell me their spoken English is horrible, or they're studying abroad, but they somehow can't communicate like native speakers do. So I want to explain why this phenomenon exists and what are some of the misconceptions surrounding spoken English. I'm going to try to make this as short and clear as possible because one, I don't want to bore you guys, and I have a lot of emails to go through. Number one is, don't think spoken English is just about your mouth. A lot of people say, oh, everything else is okay. It's just my spoken English. It's just I somehow have problem opening up my mouth. Or people will tell me, oh, I'm just too timid. I'm just too intimidated to speak up. Or, oh, I don't have foreigners around me. Or I don't have that environment. Like, these are seemingly legitimate reasons. If I break it down for you, you'll see where the problem is. So a lot of people think they don't have the environment. Okay, but how do you explain people who have that environment and have lived in that environment for a decade or 5 years or 6 years? And you might be like, oh, it's just their personality. They're not going out. They're not brave enough. Maybe they're shy. That's why their spoken English is horrible. When the truth is, it's kind of a survival problem. If you don't speak a word of English, it would be stupid for you to live in that environment where you don't know where to shop. When your kid gets sick, you can't go to a white doctor. You can't go to an English-speaking pediatrician, because you have to communicate. You have to get your points across. You can't risk your child's safety. You can't risk your safety and protection over a chance to practice your spoken English, so to speak. The thing about practicing English with a native speaker or practicing English itself, these two ideas are very misleading. There's a time and place for you to practice your English, just like you don't want to lift heavy weights the first time you go to a gym because your muscles are weak or you don't have any muscles. If you want to pull it off, you might hurt yourself. You might be intimidated and even traumatized to do it again. Of course, I don't want you to think that I'm discouraging people from speaking up more and practicing your English more. I'm just saying, don't immediately go into that because you have not built enough foundation. You don't have enough words. You don't have enough language input. Even if you are brave enough to talk to a foreigner, or even if you feel like you can do this, I understand why people like to fixate on speaking English, but you gotta think counterintuitively. The more you focus on speaking English and speaking English alone, the less likely you'll be able to excel at that aspect, because speaking English is not standing on its own. You can't just practice your speaking English without looking up the words, without reading, without getting enough input. Learning English or any new language is a very three-dimensional thing. You have to incorporate different elements. In order to speak up, you have to first understand what the other person is talking about. If you can't understand when you're listening, you have to at least be able to recognize on paper what this person is talking about. And so speaking on its own is very difficult. And speaking is probably the most difficult ability out of the four, namely listening, reading, writing, and speaking. This video is meant to encourage you and inspire you because your inability to speak up has nothing to do with your courage. It has nothing to do with your mouth. It has nothing to do with your personality. But at the same time, I want this video to serve as a reminder or a warning. Stop fixating on spoken English. Stop fixating on environments. Stop fixating on, oh, I gotta talk to a foreigner the next time I see it. You're not ready, even if you live in that environment. I mean, there are so many foreigners. There are so many English native speakers in China or anywhere now. So a chance to practice isn't really your problem right now, And like I said before, you gotta first be able to understand what the other person is talking, because guess what? Native speakers don't talk as slowly as your textbooks do. They talk like this. probably even faster. You know, there are some native speakers who are teaching in China who will probably tell you, oh, you just gotta be, courageous. You just gotta put yourself out there and be open to criticism and be brave, and you can do this, and, you just gotta speak English more. And I'm telling you, they're telling you bullshit. If they have not learned a new language or a second language and be somewhat fluent at that, they don't have the position, they don't have the qualifications to tell you that, because they themselves don't know what it's like to actually master a language. I know I'm sounding a little harsh here, but that is the reality, that is the truth. The problem is not whether or not they can speak perfect English. The problem is they cannot give that fluency to you. Yes, they are fluent, but they didn't learn it the way you are learning it. Next time someone tell you to be just courageous, just ask them to speak a little bit of Chinese and see what it's like. Make them talk about something deep. Make them talk about something a little complex, and make them talk about something extensively and see how difficult it is, Ask them to actually understand what a Chinese person is talking about and see what it's like for them. And so there you guys have it. If I come across as rude and aggressive and mad, it's probably because I'm so sick of these people spreading out wrong messages and misleading people. They think they're encouraging people, but they're actually making people feel more afraid and just horrible about themselves. They're already questioning their intelligence, their memory, and blah, blah, blah. And for someone to tell them, oh, you just gotta speak up more, that's like nothing. It doesn't help anyone. It's a solution that isn't really a solution. It's just, an observation. Yeah, of course I can speak up, but I can't understand you. How can I speak to you when I don't understand anything? How can I, start a conversation without knowing these words? Because if you think about it, a baby spends its first 2 years, maybe one, but on average 2 years, not talking, not speaking anything. We are absorbing that information at the first 2 years of our life. That's our job. We have to absorb, we have to listen, we have to actually observe how our parents are using that language before we ever utter a sound. For you to be, expecting yourself to speak up so soon. By the way, you are kind of a baby in that language acquisition process. It's ridiculous. So I don't want to hear about people asking me to, practice your spoken English. I don't want to hear about it anymore. I think the one thing that I pride myself on is that I didn't just learn spoken English. Before I ever talked to a foreigner, before I ever talked to a native speaker, I spend a lot of time talking to myself. I spend a lot of time practicing my pronunciation without anyone around. My accent, some of you call it almost American, perfect American. I don't care, but I spend a lot of time on it without, foreigners or native speakers correcting me. I have my own, insecurity issues or, perfection issue. I was getting myself ready to talk to a native speaker because I don't want to just talk to you about, the weather, my school. I actually want to contribute to your life. I want you to think I'm a legitimate person. I don't want you to think, this Chinese girl is just using me to practice her English. I want to feel like I'm intelligent, I'm knowledgeable, I know what I'm talking about, and I can bring value to your life, Because nobody wants to be held hostage for, practicing that other person's English skills. So I think that's it. I'll see you next time. Bye.